and welcome to episode 26 of Illuminating Rounds. Special episode today. No ASL scenario, but Martin, how you doing?
Well, you asked me that before we were on air, Dave. You know I'm all right. Yeah, I'm fine. So we got our first ever proper interview.
We have, yeah, and it's not between ourselves. So due to the fact that we're about to play the Dinant campaign, we had a very kind offer from Dan Dolan, who offered to give us any kind of insights or advice or questions we might need answered about Dinant. So we're going to get him on the call, and we're going to have a chat to him.
We've got a list of about 700 questions about the rules, I think, here, haven't we?
Yeah, no, we started playing it, didn't we? We had like a warm up, which is a really good idea. I think it's a nice idea from you to let's play out like the first 2 or 3 turns, see how we get on, get a feel for it, and then reset. And I'm certainly glad I get the chance to do that because that initial bombardment was absolutely brutal.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. I mean, there were tons of things. I mean, we did one turn, didn't we? And I think we spent about 25 minutes playing and about 4 hours arguing about the rules. But it does mean I think we'll be able to crack on and play it and enjoy it from the outset now.
So I mean, what was your impression from the start? It felt like I was just getting battered, and you were.
Yeah.
I mean, I was passing some crazy morale checks.
You were actually. You were. I felt like I couldn't do. I had loads of really good shots, and it felt like all I do is make you heroic.
Yes.
And, your heroes and stuff like that.
And these were green. These were green French troops.
Very difficult for you to have any impact on the guys getting in the water as well, wasn't it?
It was something like mortars facing the right way, firing at boats needed. I think it was needed a 1 to hit the. Because they're 7 base, you've got the low visibility, you've got the motion. They are. I'm not sure about the double small count, but it was it was just everything about them was difficult to hit.
Even infantry firing at them at half firepower, aren't they? And you can't expose your infantry to the river because you get blasted by the Germans. So it's going to be interesting to see how you set up. Now you sort of know that, and cut my own thoughts because I thought it was quite difficult getting across the river. So it's going to be quite interesting thinking about how we try to overcome those difficulties.
Right, and that railroad that runs through the town unhelpfully blocks most of the line of sight for a good portion of it as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it really does. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to playing that. So we're gonna.
Could you put trenches in front of that? Never thought of that.
You could do. Yeah, you could do.
But you might just a very good way of losing a lot of French troops.
Yeah, it just feels like trying to retreat back over on top of a railroad. Might be a bit tricky on but it's certainly interesting. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Dan. So he's going to be joining us in a minute or two. So we've got a new patron. So we're going to say thanks to Rich Wiley, who's a new patron. So thank you, Rich. And we've also got a giveaway. We're going to give away our copy of our rat chart, our version 1 of the rat charts. So we had 3 suggestions for best annual scenario. I don't think I played any of them. I don't know about you, Martin. Meeting of Patrols from Randy, the Croix of Calais from David Shannon, and Last Defence Line from Indy. Martin,
I played Croix of Calais. Croix of Calais is the only one I've played.
Okay, all right. So David already had a copy of the chart, so he said don't give it to him. So it's a straight fight between Randy and Indy. So Martin, could you perhaps toss a coin and heads?
Absolutely,
heads is Randy, tails is Indy.
Heads is Randy.
Yep.
Tails is Indy.
Yep.
And it is heads.
Okay, all right. Well done, Randy. Sorry, Indy. Just not a loser in our eyes, honestly. So, Randy, I'll be in touch and I'll get a copy of this over to you. And again, if you've got a copy of it already, feel free to give it away to a newbie or something. If you don't want it, we'll hold on to it for another show. So, what else have you been up to, Martin?
Not very much ASL department. No, I've been quite busy this week. A lot of tidying up. I've done a bit of cut some counters, just like last week, really. Right. And of course, played a campaign game 1 turn of Dinant with you. That was the highlight.
Excellent. All right. Okay.
How about you?
So I've been doing next to no ASL. The Scenario Archive has been hardened a little bit more. So I'm pleased to hear it's been up now. I think 3.5 days non-stop, which is actually it's quite a bit of an achievement for the archive. It gets bombarded with spam and all sorts. It's frankly horrible running an internet server when the whole world can poke at it and scratch at it and prod it and things like that. So it's become a little bit more resilient, but it's still going to be Still got some more work to do, I'm sure, but yeah, that's that. So thanks very much for being part of the call. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Glad to see you guys are going to play the campaign game. I'll be interested to see.
Absolutely,
It's good to see.
We're looking forward to playing. It's a bit of it's a big undertaking, I think, for Martin and I.
It's a big campaign game. I mean, it plays fast, but it's big.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun. The first day crossing the river is an experience. It might take you 2 scenarios to get over there.
Right. We're gonna get into the details, I think, in a little bit. First of all, I thought we could talk a bit about you, because you're quite the ASL. You're a big name in ASL, really. Going back a long way, I've seen scenarios that you've designed 20 years ago.
Yeah, I did. I've been doing this a while.
Yeah. So can we hear a bit about you and how you got into ASL and stuff like that?
That's a bit better, I think. Yeah. I'm into ASL. I've been a gamer since I was 10 years old, back in 1960. I started off with Avalon Hill stuff, graduated into Squad Leader when they first came out with that. I was like, what the hell is this? I looked at it for probably 2 years. I had it on my shelf and I never punched it, because I didn't. Then one day I was bored and I just didn't have anything. I said, I'm going to try set this up, and that was it. I got taken. I was looking for the Japanese. That was my thing. I'm a PTO guy. And I was waiting on the Japanese, and then Brian Martuzis started this thing, scenario exchange program, where you sent the scenario in and he sent you a scenario back from somebody else. And he was like a trading house for it. So I got into that, and I was designing a couple of scenarios for that, and it was different time. Everything was done by mail. There was no email, so you had to mail stuff to people, and trying to play Squad Leader by mail was just too frustrating. I never really got into that. I couldn't find anybody that was willing to play in my area. Believe it or not, New York is one of the worst areas in the country for Squad Leader. There's just nobody here. It's just J.R. Tracy is over in Manhattan. He gets some people every now and then up through his visitors. But I've tried to run a club up here for years, and we just don't get the people. There's like 7 or 8 people in this area that play Squad Leader. They're all very good. Steve Flever, J.R. Tracy. The guys that come are, they're top quality players, but they're just not. They're not here consistently. You can't get them to a meeting. You can get them to play in a tournament. They have a tournament up in Albany. It started off down by me. I had the ASL Championship of the World. Not trying to, go for any titles or anything like that, but had the ASLOC people up in a frenzy. I would call it that. It worked out well for a couple of years. I still got a T-shirt that I owed to one guy that won the first one, Brian Sealski. I got his T-shirt, but he'll never get it. But yeah, I've been designing scenarios. I had some in Mark Hanna had that magazine out. What was it? At On All Fronts? No, not On All Fronts. He was. What the hell is this? The name of Mark Hanna's magazine? I can't remember it. But
was it a Crossfire, or there was a few I guess we can find out. But I saw you were in the annual as well. You did the Gabu.
Yeah, the Moon of Tanambogo. That was I sent that into Rex Martin, just wondering if they would do something with it, because I had it all on the ocean overlays. I used the 4 ocean overlays to make the board, and I drew the islands. They had. You've probably seen a picture of the naval plane flying above the two of them with the smoke coming off of Tanambogo. And I used that to draw the islands. And, it came out pretty close to what I was looking for. Darrell Anderson went there a couple of years ago, and he took a boat from Guadalcanal over to Gabutu and they drove around Gabutu and Tanambogo for about an hour. And he said there's nothing there. It's just these two overgrown islands that like you can't even go onto. It's like from the beach up, it's just solid jungle. It's all overgrown now and everything. But that was my first published by Avalon Hill type thing. Yeah. I did a couple more scenarios for them, Moyland, Bloody Moyland, and what's the other one? Deluxe one that they put out. And, I didn't really get anything done for a couple of years, and I was working on Cockazoo Ridge.
Yeah.
To send in, and I had the map done. I had just gotten done drawing the map in black and white, and I got a call from Brian Youse, and he said, "Would you be interested in doing Cockazoo Ridge?" I said, "Yeah, I got the map done, and I'm working on some scenarios." He says, "We got the map done. Don Petros painted it. It's all ready to go. Could you take a look at it and see?" I'm like, "All right, I'll look at it. Maybe I can put my scenarios into it." He used the same book that I did, the Green Book on Okinawa by Roy Appleman, and he had the map drawn out. It looked almost exactly hex by hex like the one that I did. So it was like no problem at all to switch the stuff that I had to what he had. It was a little wiggling with the cave complexes and that. And it was good to go, and did that for them, and they were happy with that. And then I talked to Xavier Vitry, and my ASL life came to a screeching halt for the next 22 years. We were talking one night on the old ASL mailing list, and we were going back and forth about French and how they built their tanks with the guy sitting on the back of the turret and a little bench. And who the hell builds a tank and puts your gunner and commander out on the back of the tank and on a bench? Only the French would do something like that. He said, "Why don't you design something on the French? You're always cutting them down and saying that they do stupid things. You should design something for the French." I said, "All right, I'll design something for the French." I'm looking around trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to design for the French. And I had just gotten, I think it was Croix de Guerre, might have been Croix de Guerre, and I saw the Dinant bridgehead. So I said, this might look good, for an ASL little, for a journal kind of thing. I was thinking, or an annual, little one map thing. And I posted up that I was looking for a map of the Dinant area. So Xavier Vitry sends me the geological survey maps for Dinant. So I took a piece of cardboard and I cut it out to the size of an ASL map, what would be 222 by 34. So I try to lay it on the map of Dinant. I got it down on the map. I thought, "Oh, I can do this." So I traced it out and I pulled it off. I took two pieces of hex map grid that I had, and I shrunk them down to where they just fit on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And I started drawing out the lines for the altitude and stuff like that. And then I started coloring it in by hand, where I wanted the woods. And I got a little map done. And I gave it to Nadir at Winter Offensive this year. So he would have a copy of the original map so he could see what it looked like. So I gave him the original copy. I said, "Nadir, if you want, you can frame it." Just how horrible it was. But people made fun of my artwork for years. They did Ruiz that Ridge.
I remember, the crayon map, yeah.
That was the worst map in wargaming history.
But you were a little bit stitched up, weren't you? Because I don't think you expected them to publish your map. I think was my recollection.
No, I never expected anybody to see that map, except Ray. Because he was like, "Oh, I love this map because the original map looks good. I mean, I can show you the original map now. I mean, it's not a bad-looking desert map. I did it in like watercolor and barrel bark.
Yeah.
So I colored it all in. It looked nice. But the thing was, I used a highlighter over a brown to do the dayers. Mm-hmm. And when Ray had it done at the printer, they took a picture of it that basically wiped out the brown. It just left this electric yellow. Like, oh! When you looked at it, it was like an assault on your eye. The only thing you could notice was these yellow blotches, and it was harsh. I mean, I felt like I was getting beat up with the thing, but it was, for a couple of months I had to take some abuse, but it calmed down. People, the big thing was he gave it to Kurt Martin to do the campaign game. So Kurt changed all the coordinates to Avalon Hill type coordinates. Where I had on the map, it was numbered 1 to 100 along the top row, and then it went down from 150 to. He changed it to A1, A2, A3, and like that. But he never changed the coordinates in any of the scenarios.
Oh right. Oh no.
So when the thing got published, it had A1, A2, A3 on the map, and on the scenario cards, it had set up 101 point. That was another thing. You had to decipher the code to get to play it. I wanted to give him a special decoder ring. It was just a nightmare, the whole thing. So I just stopped working with Greg with that. And I went back to Avalon Hill. I pulled Dinant out of the thing and started on that again. And, about 10 years into it, the deer came down one day. We went to a fence, and he said, I had to out in the hallway, and he said, would you like me to make you up a map? So I blew him off for 4 years. I was like, yeah, the deer, you don't have to do that. That'd be nice, but I didn't know what kind of map he'd do. I saw him, he did that Suicide Creek. It was nice. It was basically all jungle. So I was like, all right. I saw him again 4 years later. He says, you never gave me that map. He said, why don't you take a picture of it and send it to me? Right? Picture of it, I sent it to him. Winter offensive ended. I got home on Sunday. Monday morning, there's an email with a map layout. Got all of the terrain and elevation on it. None of the fancy stuff, houses, buildings, just the terrain. I'm like, holy crap, that looks better than my map. There, give me the map. So we worked on the map for about 6 months, going over, we found stuff. I found a video of the Grand Farm, Chateau de May, up on top of the hill. It's owned by this old lady. It's 93 years old, and she has a shotgun loaded with salt that she basically uses to keep people off the property. She doesn't want people coming up onto her property because she's got an equestrian stable there. People do dressage, and it's very, they don't want to have people, coming up looking to see, because you can see off the cliffs on her property. She's got some nice cliff views. She doesn't want people going near the cliffs because they fall off. So we couldn't go up there, but we went into the town when I went there. We stayed down in Bourguignon at this Auberge Bourguignon, this bed and breakfast type place. 6 beds they had, and this guy Vincent that ran the place was so cooperative. I mean, he came downstairs with a book full of stuff when he found out what I was doing there. He came downstairs with a book his father had made. His father owned the place before him during the war, and they crossed right in front of the building. There's a picture that his father took of this German Panzer II, Panzer, I think it was a Panzer III, getting towed across the river on a ferry. And his father is standing out on the front steps of the hotel taking a picture of this that he has, showing from the hotel's point of view, this German thing. And in the background of that picture is the German photographer taking a picture across the river with his father standing on the front steps of the Auberge in a white suit, the chef suit. So he had the 2 pictures of that.
Wow.
He took us around.
Yeah.
The one day driving all around the town and that. We had a great time with him. He was really helpful. He picked us up wherever we wanted to go, and we just had a great time. He gave me a lot of stuff on the area.
Yeah.
And it helped with the map, historical stuff that his father had. Rommel, actually, they brought him back there after he was wounded. And they stitched them up and they spent the night there right after the finale at Anhe, when they were going to Anhe. And Bismarck called back and said that he was surrounded. He said that he was there, and they transferred it to surrounded. In German, it's eingestafen and eingestofen or something for, I'm there and I'm surrounded. Sounded almost the same. So he found out that Bismarck was surrounded. He took off with like 15 tanks and everybody that had crossed during the night to rescue him. And he headed to Anhe. He got there, and Bismarck said, "Oh, look, there's the town, He's like, "Well, let's go take it." So that started like a day-long battle at Anhe. We got the scenario for it on the geomorphic board. It's got the 6 geoboards. I tried to make Dinant like chronological with the scenarios. Like scenario 1 was fighting the Belgians in the Ardennes. Scenario 2 was the Belgians trying to get across the river. Scenario 3 is the crossing the river. 4 gets into the fight, in the entrance and that, and then he gets into the night scenario. It's, I was playing on a pretty basic campaign game. Then Carl came along with his campaign game, and it blew the thing out of the water.
Right.
Yeah. You all right there, Dan?
Yeah, my son's got it.
Okay, cool. Could you give us a little bit of the historical sort of context of the crossing at Dinant, what the Germans were trying to accomplish, and
they were coming through the Ardennes. That was part of their plan to outflank the National line. They were looking to outflank that, and Rommel had taken the 7th Panzer through the Ardennes. They met some Belgian chasseurs. There were like 80 of them just outside of the map area here, in the town of Chabris. And the 80 Belgians held the Panzer Division up for about 4 hours. And they were part of this Panzer group that was going through north of Rommel. Rommel was the southernmost part of it. North of Rommel, you had the big Panzer thrust that was coming through Sedan and the area up there. Dinant was like the southern flank of the Panzer thrust. And when Rommel got there, the Germans had arrived early in the day on the 13th, and they tried to cross, and they were repulsed. They got some rafts in the water, and they tried to cross, and they just couldn't do it. The fire was too heavy. The French division that was there had marched into Belgium as part of the Dial plan. They went into Belgium, and they were going to meet them on this river, and they got blasted back. So they marched in and back. They did like 27 miles in like a day. They left all of their light mortars. They didn't carry them. So they got back to Dinant, and they relieved the division that was there, and they took over the defense of this sector. Their area of defense got doubled from what it was for the other division because there was less Frenchmen there, so they were spread out a little bit. And in Dinant itself, they had basically a regiment in that area that was ready to fight on the thing. They took over the positions of the other division that was there, but the other division took the keys to the pillboxes. So they couldn't get into any of the pillboxes, which is why there's only 3 on the first scenario. And the Germans had to try to blow the doors off them to get into them. And when they did that, they blew the pillbox up. It took too much explosive just to blow the door up without blowing the top off the pillbox. They didn't have any pillboxes. And they basically had to make do with what they had, just digging foxholes quickly. And, they were told that they were going to have 4 days. They had 8 hours before the Germans showed up. Mm-hmm. And we tried to show that in the crossing scenario that we have. The third scenario is just the crossing. The second crossing. The first crossing, they got like 80 guys across into a clump of houses between the 2 re-entrants. It's basically in the middle of the map. You'll see there's like a weir there that crosses the river.
Yeah.
And in that area there, they got like 60 guys across, and they went into the houses, and everybody else pulled back into the houses on the west side of the river, east side of the river. And Rommel appeared on the scene, and he was like, "What's going on?" to the company, to the battalion commander that was there. And he says, "Oh, we tried to cross, and we can't get across here. We're going to have to figure something else out." Rommel goes, "Unacceptable. Get those people in the boats and get across the river." The guy said, "Well, we only got 60 people across the river. What can we do? We have no smoke." Rommel said, "What are those 60 people doing over there?" He said, "Oh, they're in the buildings across on the other side of the river." So Rommel says, "Have them set the buildings on fire. They'll give us smoke."
Oh.
So they set the buildings on fire that they were in. With the breeze, the smoke blew into the river in some places, and they managed to get across. That's where they launched their attack.
I'm just making notes for tactics when I play Dave later in the week. Yeah.
Rommel also got 2 artillery pieces and some tanks that he brought back with him to drive up and down the river and put suppressing fire on what he called sniper fire, which was in actuality the French machine guns and stuff that they had that was, in range. Rommel was like, "This is, we can blow right through this, guys. It's not a problem." And he took off, and went down to the river and actually went across with the first wave.
Wow.
He went across the river with the first wave and got them like into the boats, into the water, up on the other side. Told the guys that were in the houses to set them on fire. The guy said, "Their radio goes that the houses are on fire. What should they do?" He said, "Get out of the houses and get up the cliffs." So they got out of the houses and started climbing up the cliff face.
Right.
As the rest of the battalion that was there started across. And I'll tell you, who's playing the German?
I'm playing the German.
You're going to have a traffic management problem.
Yeah.
There's a couple of spaces that you don't want to get shot in, coming down between buildings on a narrow road. You got to be careful when you come there, because you can block the road up, and then you got to push the thing out of the way. We had to put that in because we had it happen, but not to the extent that a couple of guys were starting to do it. They were really crippling the Germans by doing it. So we put an errata and allow the Germans to push, because there's no rule in the rule book that says you can push on a narrow street. You can do it in the open.
Okay.
But on a narrow street, there's no way to do it. So we put it in that the Germans could push it with an equal or greater sized vehicle. They only have the heaviest vehicle they got, I think, is the Panzer IV.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you get one of them stuck in the street, you got to get another one of them to push it out of the way.
Yeah.
It takes time. Everything with the Germans is time based.
Yeah.
You want to get across. If you don't get across in the first scenario, the second scenario you got to get across. You got to have bridges built. You got to get ferries going. And you have to get them down to the water's edge with the assault engineers. You can't use your assault engineers as your combat troops.
Mm.
They're there to build bridges.
Mm.
It's nice to have that smoke exponent to help you get up on the hill. And every now and then you can take one of them that are over on the other side and throw up a smoke thing for, to turn, just to get somebody an angle against the machine gun or a mortar that's up on the hill, because anything the French show you on the front of the hill, you got to kill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they have the means to. I mean, so we've just started playing, and we started, and we're going to start again because we thought we'd try, to experiment for a few turns. But the firepower the Germans can bear against anybody that shows their heads on that front line is phenomenal. And the French...
But you got to realize you got the rule in there. If you got a stack with more than one machine gun in it, it becomes a sniper target.
Yep.
The TEM goes down to 0, I think it is, and the sniper unit. If you put your 2 sniper units there, it's just chopping people up.
Yep.
You can put guys into the death sauce, but you're going to get picked off eventually. I mean,
Right.
you know, with the sniper numbers the way they are,
Yeah.
it's too chance you have your leaders exterminated.
Yeah.
We played games where guys lost 4 or 5 leaders in a single campaign day.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's like it can be very bloody. And
Yeah.
What would you say?
French,
Sorry.
the French can put a lot of firepower down, but like you say, as soon as they show their faces on the front of that river, they get hit by fire from, you know, even if you don't make Death Stars, you can make a fire group that'll hit them on 30 shots, you know, and they're going to go away eventually. But if you put your trenches in the right places, you can just have them go back in the trench and have a rally guy back there to get them back again, and they can slide forward. But the French have it tough in that having to buy their reinforcements a day in advance, they have to think of what they're going to be looking like at the end of the day, the next day. And early on, it's good for them to buy stuff that can get quickly to the river. You know, you want to have trucks or wagons full of infantry, you know, that is moving forward. You want to have tanks. If you can get a tank or two over by the south reentrant there, and 1 or 2 in the northern reentrant, you can stuff them up pretty good because those H-35s that they have are basically invulnerable to anything the Germans shoot at them. They got 4 armor, and the Germans are flanking them with 20 millimeters and stuff like that. And it just, you know, it doesn't really do anything to them. So if you put a French tank in the middle of the road, just sitting there, they can block it up, you know. And on the south reentrant, if you put a guy up where it goes up on the road out of there, you can stuff that as well, you know, throwing these big foxholes rounds at that. But you have to think of what you want to bring on the next day. That's big. You know, you got to guess right on that. If you guess wrong on that, it can be bad.
Yep.
You know, like the South reentrant, the first campaign day. I don't know if you've been following the Dennis brothers.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're doing the campaign, and they landed everything down in the South. He's got a good chance to win, I think, if he can get up and get out of the reentrant for the night scenario. You know, he's in the night scenario now. They only got 1 scenario left. He's got to get the 100 points off that south edge. So French know they're coming that way. That chateau that's down there and the graveyard on the other side, they can be turned into fortresses. You know, so the French got to dig a trench across there, get, you know, everything lined up and ready to go. And when they come up out of that reentrant, they just got to powder them. You know, they're going to have to spend 7 turns killing guys trying to go 12 hexes in open ground. You know, so that's going to be a problem. They got to keep 30 firepower off of that road.
Yep. And I loved your you know, the description of the campaign being that, you know, both players almost feel like they're losing at all times. It really feels like that. And we've just started.
It's so big, you can have a crappy die roll that'll kill like 9-2 leader. You go, oh, and a turn later, the 8-1 that you put in there to replace him gets battle hardened.
Yeah.
You know, and he's down 9-1. You know, it's like, oh, it's not bad. You know, so. But it's the campaign game it's dynamic to say the least. I mean, I've never played anything like it in ASL. So frustrated at times, and then you feel so good. Like the first guy that climbs up those cliffs and gets up there and lives, you're like, oh yeah. You know, and you look at him like you got him up there with the leader, and you can break him into 2 half squads, and he can go over there and stop that mortar from shooting, and you know. Then you get another guy up there, and you're like, man, you got like a platoon up there, you know.
Yep.
So is it the right thing to do what the Dennis brothers are doing and attack on one side, or do you think you have to put pressure on both re-entrants?
You got the road in the middle, the northern re-entrant, and the southern re-entrant. You got to get guys up 2 out of 3 of those, I think. But they're gonna get stuff. Because if the French can bring all their reinforcements on the southern map now.
Yeah.
You know, he's got nothing across up there. He can hold with a couple of guys. And if the French come and try to cross at this point now, they've got 1 turn to get across the board and they might get some points off, but the French are just going to go into the woods and hide, and on the last turn they're going to come back and put 30 points on the road. And those guys don't count.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing you have to worry about. You've got to secure the road that you're using to get off the board.
Mm.
And if you're all in one spot, it's doable if you're on the north map and you're using the center or the northern board. But on that southern board, you've got to clear all those guys from the river all the way up off the map and put 30 points on you. And you can hide guys in St. Missouri, there, that little clump of buildings on the southern board. You can put some guys in there that just float around for a few turns and then come out on the seventh turn of the campaign date and sit along the ridge of the cliffs to run along the south re-entrance there and just put, 8 firepower factors onto the road.
Right.
And you get 4 of those guys, a couple of machine guns, and you got your 30 factors on there. So they still have a tough time getting out of there. He looks like he's close, but he's very far away.
And that's what I love that about the campaign, in that you've got the planning element that you mentioned, trying to plan those reinforcements and the purchases, but you've got the different stages as well. You've got the river crossing, and then you've got the securing of the road, and it's all in 5 campaign dates as well. So it's such a dynamic campaign.
Right. The thing with the campaign is you can't switch your guys around. Like it's the German, you can't take a company and move it from one map to the other. Like you can in Red Barricades. You can, behind the line, anybody can move where. This is basically, you're playing a scenario, a campaign date, and then your campaign date ends, and you basically stop, take a breath, and start again. There's no moving guys around. There's a little bit of, you check to see if there's supply is there. That's where building the bridges across the map. You got to have a bridge across the map by the end of the second day.
Right.
You got to have ferries up and running. If you can get ferries up and running across the river, that helps you get your armor across. You can churn an armor guy across there every 2 turns, 3 turns, with the ferry. That's big. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you can drive one of those German tanks up next to a French group with 8 firepower factors and a machine gun, that usually blows the French out. Like an 8-up 2 shot or an 8-up 3 shot, and then the gun into the window. And there's no vehicle bypass movement.
I was going to mention that. Yeah, that seems like it's not a controversial thing, but it seems an interesting approach to kind of eliminate that rule.
The problem we found was in the scenarios way back. Ron Dewinski, who play tested this with me from when I first started back in 2000. We found that if you allowed the Germans to come up and bypass, freeze the guy, they could just do it and run off the board. They had so many vehicles. You can buy a company of German vehicles, I think, in this, I'll look at the sheet, but you can buy a company of tanks, you get like 25 German tanks.
Yeah.
In most places, the French have 3 or 4 positions that they're defending between where the front line is and where the board edge exit is. And if you come at that with 25 tanks, you can drive one up there, and if they don't kill it, it's freezing that guy. You can drive 23 of them past there. And they do the same thing to the next one, and they just drive off the board literally in 2 turns.
Yeah.
They're off the board. They're moving road movement. They're unbuttoned. They might have a guy shooting at them from the side, but they're taking a 4-up 2 shot.
Yeah.
It's just we found it was not doable for the either side, because the French, believe it or not, we had a guy that pulled all armor for the French and drove down and did it to the Germans on the beaches of the river. They drove them up and they froze them in the houses on the beaches of the river where they couldn't fire anybody. And they had all the French guys come running down off the hill and kill them. They surrounded them with like 3 guys and jumped into close combat with this frozen guy, and the French were like, sitting on the river picking Germans off. So it was both sides were using it and abusing it.
Right.
So we tried to figure out a way. We first said, let's try a task check, to do it, and it didn't work. It's like even with a 3-task check, with 23 vehicles, one of them's going to pass it. And they would jump into bypass, and everybody else would go driving by. And it was just, it was something we eliminated. Perry questioned it. We said, listen, we've been playing it this way for 15 years. And he was like, okay, it was controversial, in the fact that nobody had ever done it.
Right.
And we felt it was justified because it was really the only way to stop people from abusing it, and it works well. I mean, it doesn't take anything from the game. It adds to it in the fact that you can't use this tactic. You have to be prepared as the French to defend in depth. You got a Panzer division coming at you. It's there across the river, and everything that it has is coming down that road in those 5 days. You can pick how you want it to come down the road. That's the thing, it's the German. You're going to pick, when I say traffic management, you got these streets on this side of the map that are narrow, and you're wiggling these stacks of I hope you got nimble fingers, because you're going to be cursing me for this big a map. Coming down off the hills and into that little bit of town there, with those trucks loaded with the bridge sections and that, and you got to be careful. You don't want them to get hit by the 25s. They can really take your day off. One of those 25 millimeters, and the 37 splat guns even are dangerous. When you're shooting at beach boats or bridge sections, they're very vulnerable. That's when you want to shoot at them. And as the German, you want to sweep that section, so where you pick to build your bridge, there's nobody shooting at you. Your assault engineers, and you get Rommel over there to yell at them. That +2 that he throws on everybody within his range is, he can get the bridge built in 2 turns. You throw it down, guys come running out with the second section, and bang, you're across the river.
And that's another new rule for ASL in a way, from the official point of view, of a named leader in effect with a different leadership style. Was MMP okay with that? They were.
Well, the thing was, Rommel had such an effect on this action. I mean, he came upon it and it was totally stalled. They weren't moving. They weren't doing anything. And he came and said, "You guys got to get going." And not only did he say you got to get going and then leave, he left and came back with 6 tanks and 2 artillery guns that he put up on the hill, and they just started, blowing things up and throwing a little bit of smoke out there. But Rommel crossed with the first wave. He got the guys putting the ferries together on the other side. He was out there helping them drive the stakes in for the ferries. He was out there running the line across. He was in the water, doing stuff with these people. So we felt that we wanted to get him involved in the action, but I didn't want him to be a 10-3, helping people with machine guns, making a giant Death Star that just swept everything it saw. And so I said, I've never designed a scenario, I don't think, with a 10-3 leader. I just don't think that they should be able to eliminate the effect of a building, like a stone building. They can make it go away. Have 3, 4, 6, 7s firing 50 caliber machine guns on a 36 column. And I don't like that. So I wanted Rommel to show what he was active in, was helping the units move and function and do their job, helping the engineers build the bridges, get the ferries running, and get the troops that were sitting in buildings moving. He boosts their morale, and he gives them the ability to get up and get out of the house and start moving. So when he came into being on the ASL map, I figured I got to give him the 10 morale, because the guy's a rock. He wasn't afraid of anything, it seemed. When he got to Bourguignon in that area there, he started getting the troops into the buildings and pushing up the re-entrance. That was what he did. And then he went back across the river to the commander of the battalion that was there, who was being replaced now with the regimental commander that came down. He told them to just keep funneling everybody to Dinant to cross. And he was going to go to the Panzer Division that was just north of them, I think it was the 5th, and tell them to come to Dinant to cross, because when they crossed, they found that they were in an area that had just woods on the other side of the river. Just south of here, where the end is, that's the end of like the town. Then you into an area when you cross the river, there's just woods, and there's a field of about 600 yards that's like chest high in this weird brush that they have there. We used grain to depict it on the top of the hill. It's really like a brush that's like chest high. And it goes on for like 500-600 yards off the river, and then it goes into this dense wooded area that you can't drive a tank through. It's not like woods that you can drive a tank through. There's no road going there. So you have to either go north for another 3 or 4 miles, or south for like 2 miles to Dinant. So he sent them all south to Dinant. So basically you had the whole 1st 7th Panzer Division was on its way to this area to cross. After they crossed, they came south and over the riverbank on the west side. And they, started heading inland there. Some of them went up the north re-entrance. Most of them went down to the south re-entrance, but that's the big highway that leads to Anhay, which is the next town down the road. Anhay was a regimental headquarters for the French, but they put the message out that anybody that got separated from the units to head to Anhay. So you'll have some of the reinforcement groups that come onto this map for the campaign game are troops that were headed to Anhay from the north. The Belgians sent some cavalry scouts down. So there's a platoon of cavalry that can come in. You can get, various Belgian units can arrive. It's just the French have a tough road trying to figure out what to buy, especially in the later, like the night campaign date and the day after that, the last day. What do you buy for that day? Do you buy infantry to keep them in, or do you buy anti-tank stuff to kill the tanks and vehicles that are trying to run off? Because you're going to have, it's going to look like an Oklahoma land rush on that last day. The Germans are trying to get off, but they're also trying to clear the French out from the supply route that they choose back. They got to pick a supply route and make sure it runs off the board and secure that last date. And that's the problem, and that's what makes that last campaign date so important. Because the French might get, in the campaign game I played, Don Holland and I played, I had like 70 points off on a night scenario. I got 70 points off. So I only had to get 30 off the last day, but I had to find a road. I still had no road that was secure. And finally I got the road that I had secure, was the one that ran from the west edge up through the Grand Farm to May to the center road that came off and went back down through the center. It wasn't either of the re-entrance, it was the road that was up above. And I used that to come down, and I got across with that. But it's so hard for the French to defend against that last day. You don't know where the guy's going to hit you, but there's a lot coming at you. Like you have untold wealth as the Germans, but you can't get it up to the front in time because you got to get through that damn traffic jam you got on the west side of the river. And Martin, I tell you, build bridges, build 16-ton bridges, and get these guys across, because if they don't cross that river, you're just going to be. It's very difficult if you don't push them. You got to push them.
So what about the French? What should the French be doing?
The French have to set up. There's 2 places the French want to defend in the first day. The opening to the southern re-entrance. There's some buildings right at the end of the southern entrance. The College of Notre Dame. There's a big building there. It overlooks the railroad tracks that come through. Then there's some row houses right at the beginning of the re-entrance. You got to defend them to the death. You want them held at the end of the first day.
Now Martin's smiling. Martin's smiling at this point because he bombed them. These first when we tried it, the bombardment's basically taken all of those things out. I mean, he's
okay. That's fine. The rubble is there too. That'll work.
The rubble will slow the Germans down as well, won't it?
Yeah, you're just looking to hold them. That re-entrance is a series of delaying actions by the Germans, by the French. They have to. You got to get infantry down there on the first campaign day because you only start off with 5 on each side. I think 10 guys down by the river or something like that, and you got to get guys down into the re-entrance. And in the north, you want to get them along that rail line because the rail line starts to become an elevated rail line down in what is it? LL 30, 20.
Yeah, 20. Yeah.
And it goes up to an elevated. It starts as the chest high one. It's like a wall. What's that? Raised.
Yep.
It goes from that to a hill where
Yep.
it's a level 1. And at that point there, you can go across it with a vehicle, but you're coming up and you're going over the top of the thing. It's a hard place to get across, but there's cover all the way across. If he's not in the level 1 building looking over the top of this thing, he can't see you. You can just cross the river and get boats and you're across, but you're behind this wall that you gotta either go up and over the top of it where he can shoot you with everybody that can see you, or go through one of the rail tunnels, little tunnels that run underneath it, these cutouts. I mean, they're really narrow, but you can get infantry through them. And if you can get up into those buildings there, it's an accomplishment on the first day. You want to be able to get across on the north map somewhere.
Okay.
Either in the middle by the road that runs up the hill through the woods, or by the re-entrance, and fight your way up into there. If you fight your way up into the re-entrance and you're down by the southern, the French are going to be squeezed because they don't have a lot of guys. If you're putting pressure on 2 or 3 points, they have a very hard time defending because if they got to split up the reinforcements to take it in, it's tough for them. If he can stuff you in one of these places to where on the second day he can take his reinforcements and only give them to 2 places or only 1 place, he's going to be in better shape.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you force him to spread his reinforcements out, you can make hay. The second and third day, the afternoon session, you can make some good ground up. The Germans get enough across on the third scenario where they can really hit the French. You can start pushing them with the quality German, because the French guys are going to be a mixture of first line and green. And the green guys, when they break in ELR, they're sitting there disrupted. I had 26 prisoners in one game.
Wow.
I took them down to the end of the southern map, and I set up 3 machine gun positions around them and had them held there by a half squad. They tried to escape. I was just going to massacre them. There was nothing. I had so many of them. They were all over the place. I was dragging these French prisoners. One guy had 4. One squad had 4 French prisoners with him. 2 half squads and 2 squads. He's like walking along with these guys, and all of a sudden, German jumps out and thinking he's like close combat. Oh my God! Looking up the rules to find out what happens with that. But it's interesting. You'll have fun trying to figure out how to get across the river.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's such a different campaign, and we're really excited about it. It's a nice size as well. I think the 5 campaign dates is manageable.
It's very manageable because the thing that's nice about it is you don't have to tear it down and set it back up again. If you've got the room to leave it set up, you can jump right back into the next campaign date. You don't have any planning to do. You don't have to like put HIP guys on the, do all that stuff. It just starts back up again.
Right, right.
You can buy maybe an HIP guy or something like that, but maybe you buy a couple of things of barbed wire. That's as much fortification as you're going to get. Foxholes, and you learn to live with them. It's like,
so how many times have you played this campaign now? Would you play it again?
Oh yeah, I'll play it again.
Yeah.
I'll play it at any time, either side.
Right.
I played it. I think I played the campaign game 4 or 5 times now.
Right.
I played it 5 times if you count one that got like 3 turns in, and the guy that was playing failed his personal morale check. He was overwhelmed by the fact that all these people coming across, and you can kill 12 of them, and it still doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If the German, you don't care about casualties. You can lose guys. You don't want to lose guys that are west of the river. If they make it across the river, you don't want to lose them. But if they're on the other side of the river and the squad breaks and dies, oh well, pick up his machine gun and give it to somebody else. And as long as you don't lose too many boats and rafts, that's the thing. You want to get those guys across in the boats and rafts.
Yeah.
And when they get across, get them moving up the hill. Get them up on the cliffs, climbing. Spread them out. Get them up in as many places as you can, because as night gets closer, they become more valuable. They spread out. They secure an area for you to build bridges. You get these guys building bridges in that pre-night and night scenario. If you can get 3 bridges up, one by the south re-entrant, one in the middle, and one by the north, you're golden. You're a rock star. The French are going to have a hard time stopping.
Yeah.
You'll be able to get 100 points off. You might be able to secure the way out, and you win it. But if the French play tough in the beginning, your work is harder. You can still win, but the French now have the ability to say, okay, we're going to fight here, and I know that. So I'll stick some barbed wire here, or maybe do a roadblock, which is, in some of these places, a roadblock is like a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
It's going up that middle route there. If you put a roadblock in FF20, the Germans have to go through the woods on either side around it to get to it. It turns areas of the map. You get into a very focused little area, and you'll fight there. And it seems like you're in like a 7x7 hex area, and your whole focus on that campaign game is in that one damn area. Trying to get a tank out of the way or something. And it's like the Dennis brothers said. You can feel 1 minute like you're on top of the world, and the next minute like there's no way I'm going to win this game.
I think we managed to feel that even in one turn, didn't
absolutely.
we? Yeah.
It's big. That's all I can say to you. You gotta realize that as the French, you've got like a regiment behind you. They're not the best regiment in the world, but it's a regiment. You can pick what you want to get from it. It's like going to a bad Chinese restaurant, and having the smorgasbord there. You're like, oh, look at this, burnt crab legs, and you have the ability to pick what you want. As the Germans, you can pick what you want, what part of the hammer you need this time. Do I need the bridges down there now? Let's get the bridges on board. Let's get some more rafts in the water. You can pick that stuff out and use it. Like you're going to need the rafts down there. Well, it's going to take you the better part of a campaign day to get the rafts to the river.
Yeah.
So you want to pick them early. Don't wait until turn 3 to pick the first river parts to go, across the river.
Right.
Get them down there. Get them start building them. You can send some assault engineers across with the first wave. It'll help them with smoking that until the stuff gets there for them to start putting the rafts and the pulleys together and the ferries. You can get 2 ferries working early and get a couple of tanks coming across there every 3 turns. 1 or 2 tanks make a huge difference in this.
Yeah.
You know, you can use 1 or 2 tanks to get by a position. You know, get yourself moving up the hill to the cliffs. If you can get a guy at the base of the cliffs and you can start climbing, you can get up 2 turns without rolling an 11 or a 12. And point to his untimely demise, you can get up on the top and get. Once up on the top, you can start clearing the cliffs that way with people. It's very helpful in securing an area to get the bridges built. You know, that's the key for the first couple of dates for you, is to secure an area to build a bridge or 2. If you got to build 2 bridges right next to each other, build 2 bridges right next to each other. If you got the troops there to do it, have them throw 2 of them up, 2 16 tons, or a 16 and an 8 even. You know, just to get guys running across. You know.
Is it worth building the 8-ton bridges? Is it worth just going straight for a 16-ton?
Well, the 8-ton bridges can be built by like a squad, a leader, and they can get that carried to the river. 16-ton requires like 2 squads, and you got to go through the machinations of like carrying this thing, and like it's just those trucks attract fire as well.
Yeah.
So you gotta be careful with them. You might want to unload them back a hex from the river, and you have these guys humping this bridge across, and all of a sudden the French find the heavy machine gun that was laying around since World War I. You know.
Right.
Dave, one of the most important taxes you'll have on the board is FF13.
FF13.
It's the church at the beginning of the northern re-entrant.
Yep.
If you look at the steeple in that hex, it shoots a lot of the river.
Yep.
Yeah.
And something nasty is going to be up there probably.
Yeah.
You're gonna have the 25 long or 37 splat gun can fit up there.
Right.
And they can cause you problems, and it's a bear to get into that thing, because it's got the railroad ties on the front of it holding the wall up, and that's like a level 1 cliff.
Right.
So it's surrounded on 5 sides by this level 1 cliff that you have to climb up to get to the church, and then you got to fight your way up to the steeple. If he puts like 2 squads into that, he's got a half squad up in the steeple, and he's got like a squad and a half down below. It can be a bear to take.
Right.
You know, I see it surrounded by like 5 tanks and like having like 4 squads going into it. And it's like, there's certain points on the map that you run into that. They're choke points, you know, and you'll find that the fights for them will decide the game. You know, if you can make it through one of his positions where he set up a stop, like, you know, something to stop you, and you can pound your way through it, just drop some artillery on it, and run in and get through it. It's big. If you spend the entire scenario and half of the next one getting through it, you're probably going to have trouble there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Makes sense.
Like I said, with the Germans, it's a time thing. You'll feel in your gut if you're doing right, if you're doing good. If you're starting to get hammered on all of these little positions, you start to feel like he's beating you in a little game of I'm fighting for this house. Then you'll know, you know. But if you start to win those houses and you can get through with an even trading people, you don't mind giving them 1 for 1. You got a Panzer division coming.
Yeah.
It's literally like, if you look at the German reinforcement chart, you're like, you can say, oh my God, if this was Red Barricades, I'd be happy. You know, we printed 35 of the those Romanian 35, the T-35, 38s. You can get like 30 of those things, and they're good tanks. They're not bad tanks. They got a smoke experience on them. And,
it's true.
You know, they got the decent armor. It's not bad, you know. But they're good tanks. They're fast. They hit hard. They got the 8 machine gun factor when they're buttoned up. You know, we have some things that, you know, mitigate them if they break the main armament and they get recalled. They got to go back. You know, they can't not try to fix it. You always got to try to fix your guns in there.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that people get upset because a lot of people used to use in the tank is the 8 machine gun bulldozer. And not fixed the main element. So he said, no, there's no Ron Dwinski, the guy that blade testing this with me, is a tanker. He's like, there's no freaking tanker in the world that's got to not fix the main armament. So what it is, if you got to fix your main armament, and you think about it's true. If you got 4 guys sitting in the tank and the main gun breaks, they're not going to sit there and go, oh, the main gun breaks, let's charge them with our machine guns.
Yeah.
They're going to say, let's fix the main gun. So somebody's going to be trying to fix that.
Yeah.
So we put that in that, you got to try to fix it. Also, in the night scenario, star shells are very hard to come by.
Yeah.
You got the +1 on the star shell attempts. So a leader now is, I think, 1 to 3, and a 1 for squads and half squads. They're all 1s. So it's not like in a regular ASL scenario, everything's lit up.
Yeah.
You have an area of board you're fighting over. Everything gets lit up. In this, you get 1 star shell. It's like 15 hexes away. It drifts. 6 in direction 4. Like, oh, there it goes. Like, all of a sudden, another section of the battlefield is lit up, and the guy's there. Like, oh my God! Everybody's shooting there.
Yeah.
It's very different night scenarios when you don't have those star shells that are like 12 units of shooting star shells up in the air. It's like everything's lit up. This is like there's no light. It's like, the one night scenario can be a strange thing because the French can bring in reinforcements that can try to pierce the perimeter and get set up on the riverbank with some radios.
Right. Yeah.
In the next scenario, if you start off the next scenario with 2 radios on the riverbank and you call in 2 OBA modules, you could really screw up the German crossing.
Right. Right.
Put harassing fire down on one of those bridges, and you're going to get like 20 squads grouped in there, some little tanks, maybe a truck or 2, and you can really cause problems to the Germans if you get through the German line that they have to set up at the end of the day scenarios. They have to set up a perimeter.
There's a lot of advanced things we're talking about here today. There's bridge building, and there's night scenarios, and there's all the things. Yet it's in a core module. So would you advise, I guess not new players, but certainly people's first campaign? Is this not a first campaign for people, or do you think that actually you can dive in and give it a go if it was your first campaign game?
I think you can dive in and give it a go. I think it's a good thing as your first campaign game. It has some complexity to it with the river crossing. There's the rules to that. I'm not going to say that's a beginner thing, but Carl did such a great job on the examples and that stuff. Showing you how to do it, what we're doing with it. The changes in the river crossing rules. Of course, an extra 1 on beach.
Yeah.
The building of the bridges, the building of the ferries, that sort of stuff. But it can be exampled out, and you're going to see how to do it exactly for the example. So, given that, there's nothing else in the Dinant rules other than the Rommel and the no bypass.
Yep.
There's nothing in the rules that isn't in the rule book now.
Yep.
Yeah. But it does have everything in, though, doesn't it? It has, it has aircraft and.
It has aircraft. It doesn't have parachutes. It doesn't have.
That's true.
It doesn't have amphibious. Well, it does have the beach landing, so
no caves.
It doesn't have Japanese caves. It doesn't have bonsai attacks.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, it's in the rules.
Yeah.
And I try to design things to stay in the rule book. I don't want to make special rules because I'm terrible at it. I know I'm the designer that knows the section is in the rule book. And I'll say, oh, we're going to use the boat section. But I don't know how to use boats. I know we want to use rule B17.3. And I say, use rule 17.3. We go on from there. When the guy tries to do rule 17.3, he's going, what the hell is he talking about? How can I make this parachute jump with both planes? But I try to stay within what's in the rule book and keep it that way because the players I feel if you got to start looking up a special rule that's written, and the guy's got like a page and a half long rule, that's, you got to really test the hell out of that.
Right, and it's not reusable either, is it? So what's nice is you get to reuse these.
It's really not reusable. If you get a guy that's trying to have a scenario, a campaign game for the first time, say, and he's got a rule there. He's never played it in ASL. He's never seen it before. He's never heard of it, and he's got to try to figure out how to make this work in a campaign game. It's not going to be fun if it doesn't work right.
Yeah.
So he misplays it, and he's like sitting there after 5 campaign days. You tell him, oh, you did it all wrong. That's all not going to work.
Yeah.
But the people in this game here, there's nothing that they haven't. If they played ASL for a while, there's nothing that they haven't seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. The river crossing and the bridge building, taking that as a separate thing. Everything else they should have played.
Yeah.
So in that respect, it is a good first campaign.
Yeah.
I would recommend to them to play through the scenarios first.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll give them the map, because the map is another whole thing. I mean, this map is got some incredibly twisted lines of sight. When the deer did this, he let the demons out when he put this thing together. He did such a spectacular job. I mean, you get lines of sight from like the chateau up in the west side of the southern map. If you go up to the second level of that, you can see all across those grain fields.
Yeah.
And anybody trying to get across them, you can shoot at tanks, anything. You can put 37 millimeter gun up there, and it's just like it's having the time of its life shooting the thing. And you get guys in foxholes along the crest line. I mean, you're not going anywhere; they're dying in place, basically. But
yeah, it's a stunning map. It's absolutely stunning map. So I mean, for me, it looks. I'm really excited about playing. I can't wait to see other people's AARs of it. I'm sure you're looking forward to seeing.
I love reading this stuff. You know what I mean? Because it's like I said, I worked on this for 20 years, and I just enjoy people playing it.
Yeah,
it's good to see.
Yeah.
20 years of labour is incredible. I hope they build a statue of you somewhere.
It's funny. I mean, when I went over there, my wife was like, "Where do you want to go?" We're going over to Germany to see my cousin. Is there any place you'd like to go? I said, "I want to go to Dinant." How can we do this? So we rented a car and we drove from Frankfurt to Dinant. Then we went down to Verdun and over to her cousin's place in Bavaria. And we had a great time, but, we saw all these places and, drove around Dolan and Verdun. And it was interesting, a very interesting trip. And it was so fascinating to see this thing that I've worked on for so long. And when I showed Vincent, the guy in the hotel, the map, I brought like a miniature version of the map over. And he looked at it and he was like amazed. He just sat there. He goes, "You could drive around the town with this map." We tried to make it accurate. He goes, "This is incredible." He goes, "Can I show this to the mayor?" He took it the next morning and showed it to the mayor.
Wow.
He was on the town council, and he showed it to the mayor. He goes, "This is, So when he took us around, he took us to this gas station, and he goes, "Come with me around the back." Like, we'll go through weeds like waist high, and all of a sudden you come into this little open plaza, and they have this memorial to this Belgian guy, Lieutenant Rene Weiss. I can't always mangle his last name. But this guy was an engineer, a Belgian engineer, and they were working to blow a bridge, the Northern Bridge. It was a footbridge across there, really. And the Germans drove 3 armored cars out onto it. And they went to detonate it, and it wouldn't detonate. This guy grabs 200-pound bags of dynamite, rigs them up with a wire and detonators, and runs out onto the bridge, past the first German armored car, who doesn't, they're so shocked to see this guy jump up next to him and run out on the bridge. I couldn't shoot at him. The second armored car shoots him, knocks the guy down. He gets up, runs past the second armored car out into the middle of the bridge, where the third armored car shoots him 2 more times, fatally. But before he does, he falls down onto the bridge and detonates the 2 bags of dynamite, blowing the bridge up with the 3 tanks on it.
Wow.
They got a plaque to this guy on this wall, and they have this Greek like columns carved out of the rock on the wall. And it's a memorial to this guy for the bravery of blowing this bridge up.
Wow.
So we put the scenario in based on this guy. And if you look at the picture of the scenario, you'll see that's the picture on the column of this guy. But it was like amazing that they built this monument to this guy. Then they sold the land in front of it. The guy put a gas station up. Nobody would know it was there.
Right. Wow.
This guy told me he lived in the town his whole life. He didn't know it was there until one day he had to go to the bathroom. He stopped at the gas station. They told him it was blocked up. Go around back and go around back, and he sees this thing. And he's like, "Well, that's weird." He never thought about it until I came and told him I was doing this game with it. He said, "Oh, you have to see this."
Wow.
The guy was like fantastic like that. I mean, he was a wealth of knowledge about the place, And I've tried to get back in contact with him, but he goes to Sardinia as his retreat. Like when the winter comes, he closes the hotel down and he goes to Sardinia. He buys cheese for the next year.
Okay.
And he goes back with a carload of cheese. So, but I tried to call him, so I want to send him a copy of the map to put up in the hotel. He was like, he told me if I wanted to run a tournament over there, he would give us the hotel for the
that'd
weekend.
be amazing. That's amazing. Yeah.
I was thinking about trying to get it done. I know it wouldn't be a big draw tournament, but he's got 6 beds there in his hotel. He said the other hotel in town, if we did this, would give us however many beds we wanted.
We can do it out of season, can't we? It doesn't have to be peak season at all. Yeah.
Well, he basically closes in October. He's done. He goes to Sardinia and he's lounging on the beach for the winter, I guess. But he was, he runs the whole place himself. The guy's amazing. He does hotel check-in. He does all the beds. He makes the beds. He does the rooms. He cooks. He's got a restaurant that he runs. And when we were there, he was renovating it himself. He took all the ceiling down, and he was. The guy was like a maniac. He was up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That guy's wife left him a long time ago. He must have. He drove her up the wall.
His wife left him. She did. He was great. I mean, if you ever want to go to a place and stay with the best innkeeper you'll ever meet, this is the place.
Wow. Okay.
But it was just, it was a fantastic experience going over there. I mean, it rained the whole time we were there. It was just, so I mean, it was good in the fact that it showed that what walking around there was like. It was not, everything was up a hill. Months ago, it seemed it was up a little. You were walking up a hill. You never walk downhill. It was just, I mean, the place it's quaint.
Yeah.
But it's got all these little streets that you can go down. It's like you're driving around and you see this little street and you turn. And all of a sudden, you're in this road that goes between 2 houses that you can't open the doors of the car on. And then it comes down to the end of the road. There's a guy parked sideways across it. There's nobody inside. The guy lives in one of these houses, so you got to get out and knock on the door. You're trying to explain to an American to the Belgian guy, can you move your car? Because I can't back from this place. So you find the guy, he comes out and he moves his car. He's laughing his ass off. You pull through this little thing, and you're on the other side, and you're free to drive, and he backs up and parks his car in the same place again, so the next guy's screwed, But it's a weird place, It's interesting, but I think people have a good time playing on it.
I think so.
The scenarios, some people are going to find some of them unbalanced. The people are finding that the one for the Belgians trying to get across, I think it's the second one. For the Belgians trying to get these wagons across and blow the bridge up. That's the one with the hero. We have the hero guy through the bridge, and it's the people are finding it tough to play the Belgians because they got a lot to do. The Germans are coming from all sides. They come from the south. They come from right off the border edge. They come from up north. And the Belgians got to get these wagons across. And a lot of guys just plod the wagons along at like 4. They can gallop at 12. But if they make any hex side changes, when they're covered off, you got to roll to see if they flip over.
Right. Ben-Hur style,
Yeah. And if you're driving 4 of them and they're galloping and you got to turn onto that bridge, 3 of them flipping over. You might get one of them through. They're flying through the air like, well, there goes 16 points, Now you got to get everybody else's running for the bridge, like the Japanese monster chasing them. So. But, you can win as the Belgians. You just have to focus on the fact that you got to get 16 points across the bridge. Then you blow it. That guy's sitting there, there's assault engineers all over the place. So, somebody should be able to blow the damn bridge up.
That's brilliant. Well, Dan, I mean, Dinant is a spectacular achievement. Thank you for all your efforts. It's incredible.
Well, thank you guys for playing it. I mean, that's the satisfaction that I get at it.
That's the easy part.
It'd be nice to see a few comments from you, professional comments on our when we're making a hash of it and things.
I don't want to, I'll give you like advice now, but I'm not going to tell you anything in the middle of the game because you guys are probably much better players than I am.
I doubt that. Yeah.
I depend on my dice.
We all do.
No, I really depend on my dice to win. Like I got this guy that I play with, Ron Dewinski. He goes berserk when I roll dice because he's brought dice from Las Vegas me to use because like I throw the dice into the dice tower and 2, 3, 2, 4, 4, 3, 2. I got like 3 guys in the stack going, heat of battle and like they all go out battle hardened hero. And I roll 3 heroes and he just like sits there, how do you do that? How do you do that? This happens, Like, I'll have a stretch where I roll 12. Yeah, I said, when you roll 12, you're shooting a squad.
Yeah.
You're not breaking anything. You're not causing anybody to die. You're just rolling a squad that does no effect on a shot, 2 up 4. It's like, oh, well. But you'll find that, with this, you'll have guys, rolling 2s and guys rolling 12s, Yeah. Don't let it bum you out. That's the thing. Even if it seems like it's critical at the moment, don't let it bum you out.
That's
because there's so many other things that are going to happen,
That's true. It's true.
Martin, get your assault engineers to work quickly.
Yeah.
Don't be tempted into sending them across the river. 1 or 2 across the river to set up some pulleys for the.
And you'd buy a pontoon bridge the first campaign date? Or is that too soon? Need to get a little bridgehead first, perhaps.
I would build ferries first.
Yeah.
I would just go because the ferries you can just throw in the water. They can go back and forth by themselves. They're like an assault boat.
Yeah.
But the bridges, you got to get them built completely before you can use them. You got to have that security on the other side. You don't want them getting knocked off by a pot shot. They're too valuable.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to buy the second bridge builders to get enough down there to build the bridges. They'll take too much time. It's a whole other campaign date wasted. So your bridges, buy them on the second day, on the third day. Yeah. I would do them on the second. That's what I want. I would generally always build them on the second because by the time you get down there, it's going to be the third, and you start your building on the third. If you're lucky, you get a bridge finished. If not, you finish it at night when everything gets across. But you're going to have some supply problems with the guys up in the front there. They start to whittle away from 4.67s to the 4.47s, which don't really matter too much in the fight for the re-entrance because the range isn't that big a deal. But when you get out onto the plateau, that's when losing 2 factors off of your range.
Yeah,
it hurts. The French are at 5 and you're at 4. They're standing off shooting you. So it's the problem. But you don't have problems if the have problems. It's the French. That's what we built into it. We tried to give both sides problems. The French have that, how do I buy this? And the Germans have that, where the hell am I going to put this until I get across the river?
Yeah.
Because you actually have stuff stacking up.
Yeah.
We took the trucks out of this. The reason that we got 37 Opel Blitzes printed in this was we used to have all of the infantry coming on the trucks. So we'd load up a truck with like 3 infantry squads and send it down to the river. When you bought a company, you got 4 trucks with it, 5 trucks or 6 trucks, whatever the hell it was. And you bought 3 companies, you had 20 trucks that were on that side of the river now. What the hell are you putting? And you had the guys coming down into the river with the bridge sections, the trucks were in the way, and they tried to pull them up onto a side road into a ditch. And it was just, so we got rid of all the trucks for the infantry. They march on down. So the truck off like a half mile off the board. So that worked much better because I tell you, we had this so stacked, it was like 4 hexes. 4 units deep in every hex. It was painful.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, Dan, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Sorry to ramble on so long.
No. Yeah, absolutely perfect. People will love to hear this kind of stuff. It's great. We're gonna keep you informed of our progress. We'd love for you to give a little bit of feedback, commentary.
Yeah, like I said, I'll comment on the turns. What I can do is I'll go digging through one of the campaign games that I played, and I'll throw up a comparison of my progress versus your progress. And,
that'd be very interesting. Yeah.
That'll give them some perspective, perhaps, on where I was. If you do better, get further advanced in this section than I did. How did you guys do it? You can put your explanations there. What your thinking as the French is in buying your reinforcements.
Mm-hmm.
What your plan is to try to stop him from getting 100 points off, and failing in that. What you plan to put 35 power factors on the roads in here.
Right.
That's the thing you got to keep in mind. That's your key. You got the last move of the campaign game.
Yeah.
And if you can put 35 power factors on that road, doesn't matter how good he's been the whole game.
Yep.
You can count your money that way, and it's just like I said, it's a campaign game. It's fun to play. I've had more fun with this than any other thing I played there. So Kabutown and Bogo would be close, but this is bigger and it's more fun. I like the idea that you got a big scenario. It's like a big scenario. That's the way it looks, but it plays like a campaign game because you get that. Okay, let's go again. You start off, everything gets clear. The stuff that's on fire burns. It's interesting. Martin, one thing you got to be very careful of: fires on the east side of the river.
Yeah.
If you get something that goes on fire on the east side of the river, a building, put enough people in there to put it out as soon as you can. Don't let it start to spread, because if it starts to spread, it's going to set everything on fire. And you're going to have the whole east side of the river on fire.
Wow.
And you'll be paying hell trying to get your trucks down to the river. Fire. It's just, I've seen it happen, and it's unstoppable once it starts.
Yeah.
You get a flame, whole machine gun Death Star that you got back, and that's them dancing on a flame. That you want to get rid of that.
Yeah. All right.
That's the other thing I can tell you.
Fingers crossed that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, it did happen. You get a guy, you get somebody sitting between 2 of these buildings, and he gets shot by an anti-tank gun and sets him on fire. He's rolling for 2 buildings on either side of that narrow road to see if it catches. And One of them will.
Yeah. Hmm.
And if the woods catches on fire, that's that can hurt you too.
Yeah.
Brilliant, Dan. We really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Have a good day, guys.
And thank you again for everything. Cheers, and
Thank
Dan.
you.
Well, okay, so what a great guy Dan is. Pretty special.
Brilliant.
That was there was so many good stories, and his knowledge of that campaign and the history as well behind it was really quite something.
Yeah.
So Dan,
what really impresses me is I might read about something, and I know all about it as I'm reading it, but a week later I've forgotten. I mean, he did this campaign game years ago, and he knows everything, doesn't he? He tells you the names of the roads, the hotel that got shut up. It's phenomenal, kind of like detailed knowledge. Yeah.
So we're going to play it. We're going to play. We're going to try and go through all 5 days. If we can get that far, we'll see.
Yeah.
I feel like given that Dan's played it 5 times, we can do it once. We can manage it. So we've, like I said, we played
campaign games. Is the feeling that you've lost already when you're on sort of turn 2, the second game. We just have to see what happens, won't we? Really.
Exactly, and that happened. That bombardment, that initial bombardment for the Germans was brutal. I'm
in the rehearsal that we did in the rehearsal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely petrified of it. So there's that. Yeah. All right. A little bit before we finish up, I want to talk about the tournament coming up. So we have got the pairings. Martin, you've done the pairings.
Yes.
Want to talk us through how you did that?
Yes. So basically, what I did was I linked up people who had very, very clear ideas about how they wanted to play. So if people wanted to play by email, I paired them up regardless of where they lived. I then started looking for regions because there are people 8-9 hours apart in time. It doesn't it's a bit awkward trying to play live like that. So people in Europe got kind of like matched up relatively randomly, really, and people in North America. So that was just tried to be as sort of fair as possible, really.
Right. Okay, so we have some special prizes as well for that tournament. So we've got the March Madness 2020 pack, which is the full ASL rulebook, and you'll remember Galician Getaway from that one, Martin, that we played. So you have a chance to win that. So thanks to the Kansas City Wargamers for that one. We also have a very special prize. This is special. So we've got a hand painted board from Don Petros, who is one of the artists who has painted the board. I've got board number 70 for the winner. So we've got that off Don. So thanks, Don, for helping out and offering to provide that for us. So we've bought that through the Patreon money, and that's also going to.
How are we going to decide who gets what prize?
Technically, I think the winner's going to get both right now.
Okay.
But we do have to figure out because I don't think it's fair that we give the March Madness pack out just to someone who beats us. But we have to figure out a bounty for you and I as well, the people who knock us out of the tournaments.
Yes.
But one thing I do want to say about it is a lot of people that have contacted me about the tournament have said, I'm just getting back into ASL, or I'm not so sure about PTO. This is a fun tournament, okay? So if people can have fun doing what they're doing, look, it's great that you guys are taking part in the tournament. We're here to have fun. No one's here to be dead serious. Do it in the spirit it's intended, and thanks for having a go at it. Really, I think that's my thing.
Great.
Yeah. So other than that, Martin, we're about to kick off our Dinant.
Exactly. Tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Bright and early.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll book ourselves into that hotel that Dan was telling us about.
Do you know what? I think Dan's got to organise that, and I want to be first to book a room. Yeah. And if he doesn't organise it, we'll organise it.
Sounds brilliant.
Just way too good an idea. It wouldn't be the same without Dan there, I think, after he's the one with the stories.
Absolutely.
But definitely something that should happen one day.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right then. So until then, see you all soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.